Morning, everybody. So this is probably going to be a quicker stream. The agenda isn't too long for today. Also, you're probably either done with the greenhouse swimming lab if you're watching right now in the CER in the conclusion section, or you're busy revising because you checked Aspen and you see you're missing parts and you're working on those parts. Okay? So we're here today in the stream at 9:15. I suggest you go check Aspen. If you have any questions, generic questions about science in general, or even just the science assignments, any assignment, I'll go ahead and give you direction. Alright, you can ask to remind or in the chat if you're using a personal account. Alright. Additionally, for the Ursa Major kids, you can complete this IXL on the human impact on groundwater. We've talked a lot about the water cycle. We know humans need water, so the future topic of human impact and climate change and how it impacts groundwater is the subject for the IXL today. But additionally, IXL is going to give you some graphs on water usage and groundwater withdrawal. And being able to analyze a graph is a really important scientific skill. So that's something that, again, connects to what we've done previously, like the water cycle. So do your best on that IXL. Let me know if you get stuck or have any questions on it. But we'll use that later on. Again, the information there builds off what we're going to do in the future. And you have nothing due immediately. Alright, we start with a new assignment tomorrow, Tuesday. Whether that is in school or still virtual, I do not know. You have to wait for principal to send out an email to you and your families later today. Okay? Either in the afternoon or maybe in the early evening. Hi Ben, I did. I hope you had one. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving too. Thank you. I know we had fun doing our science giving. We had our potatoes, our cranberries, pumpkin, corn from maize. Our Chaeopteryx was our turkey. And then we had our Native American friends and Pilgrim friends over for a good dinner. So I had a good science giving with you all before Thanksgiving. I had a good Thanksgiving. Hope you all did too. Thank you, Ben. So if there's no other questions there, just some, general news. I mean, you can't go to a science website without avoiding this topic, unfortunately. But just to kind of follow up on AstraZeneca's or the University of Oxford's vaccine, its COVID vaccine, because last time we talked about vaccines, we talked about how Pfizer's, BioNTech, and Moderna's was over a 90% effective or efficacy rate. And then Oxford AstraZeneca was at a 70%. That was just a little odd. Even though they're two different vaccines, two of them use mRNA, which are genetic codes from DNA to build proteins. And so Pfizer and Moderna want to have your cells build the spike protein from the coronavirus and then recognize that and destroy it when it comes into your body so the virus can't infect you. Whereas Oxford AstraZeneca, they used a weakened, kind of a weakened adenovirus, which is also causes the common cold, related, not really related to the coronavirus, just another type of virus that delivered parts of coronavirus from a chimp. So it was like a virus within a virus, and this is more of a standard model, and so it's cheaper, but the efficacy rate was a little low for what we've seen with Pfizer and Moderna. So I was wondering why that was low, and then found out that there are some questions that scientists and other experts have about this AstraZeneca, this Oxford vaccine. And so it pretty much came down to, professional scientists making very silly, almost dumb mistakes. They essentially added a second independent variable, which we know is a no-no, right? One independent variable so you can observe the changes in your experiment. You can have many dependent variables. You think back to Lab at the Beach, you had one dependent variable, that was temperature. You think back to the greenhouse warming lab, you had three dependent variables. You had grass height, you had germination of that grass, and you also had water level down below in the bottom of the greenhouse. So those are three dependent variables, but the only independent was the experimental greenhouse sitting on that hot plate for that low 5 minutes. So you should only have one, because if you have multiple independent variables, you don't know which one was the cause for the effect. The effect being the dependent variable. The cause should be the independent variable. So what did they do? Pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford made an exciting announcement Monday. The COVID-19 vaccine they developed appeared up to 90% effective at preventing disease. So they actually had two trials. They had two groups. Well, two groups in their phase trial. Phase 2, phase 3 trials. They found that one group had a 90% effective rate. So that 70 is actually an average between a 90% and then later on a 60% effective group. So for some reason, they decided to break their trial into two groups. I believe Pfizer and Moderna kept their trial in one group, but I believe they separated them by age. I'm not entirely sure. I had to look that up more or read further. But I believe they separated them by age, which means that you have different types of immune systems and effective rates in their immune systems when you give them a vaccine. So age, dose, all seems to be an independent variable here, and that's confounding, it's confusing, and it's going to confound the results, which is exactly what we're seeing. The days since that exciting news melted in a pool of confusion after it became clear that the 90% figure came about from a complete accident. Now experts are scratching their heads, so we have confusion. Okay? The questions swirl around the vaccine's dosage regimen. So all three vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, and Oxford, the AstraZeneca one, they all have two doses. You need two shots. You need two shots. Okay? In the initial press release, AstraZeneca and Oxford explained that researchers had used two different dosage regimens, so two different amounts were given over those two shots to test their experimental vaccine. In one, that's their code name. In one regimen, trial participants received two full vaccine doses about a month apart, 28 days. So in one group, in one regimen, volunteers received two full doses. In the other group, for some reason, I don't know why they split them, participants received a half dose followed by a full dose 28 days later. So in one group, they got 100%. They got a full dose and a full dose. And then this other group, they got like 75% of what the first group got. They got a half dose followed by a full dose. And believe it or not, the half dose, full dose group, this second group right here that's highlighted, that's the group that got the 90% effective rate. The issue is there was never supposed to be a half dose, full dose group. That was a mistake. And with that mistake, they added another independent variable. Morning, Azra. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. The reason we had the half dose is serendipity. They're just saying, we made a mistake, but it turned out okay. It's not really okay. AstraZeneca's head of non-oncology research and development, Pangalos, explained that when the UK trial first began, Oxford researchers were giving patients their first round of shots and noticed the vaccine side effects, general side effects, fatigue, headache, arm aches, were milder than expected. Oh, no kidding, they got less. So we went back and checked and we found out they had underpredicted the dose of the vaccine by half. That was the first dose. The researchers then decided to continue on with the trial and give the relatively small number of incorrectly dosed patients the proper dose for the second shot. So this paragraph is saying they know they messed up, but they just kind of continued the trial because it would cost more money and more time, which they need time. to get this vaccine approved. They just kind of went with it. So they made a mistake and they just went with it. Followed up on the second shot, which would be a full dose. Okay. In the pooled trial analysis, 2,700 participants were recruited, while the incorrect half-dose, full-dose participants was almost 9,000, 8,800. Both those companies have been kind of quiet on why, and then also whether this 90% is actually true, especially with the small number of participants. And also their age could also be an issue. Another wrinkle is that the dosing error occurred early in the trial when researchers were only recruiting people between the ages of 18 and 55, and they were excluding the older people more vulnerable to disease. The analysts with the 2 full dose on their hand did include older age groups. So this is another wrinkle, another independent variable. Again, like I said, it was going to be age. Okay, the people that got the half and full dose were on average younger. The participants that received the 2 full doses were on average, because they included the older participants, on average older. And so 60-some% effective rate, 90% effective rate. They decided, well, we're going to report out that it was 70% effective. Okay, there was more people in the 60% group, less people in the 90% group, so they weighted and averaged the two together and came up with 70%. So this 70% is kind of a little suspect. 70% is a little sus, and this shouldn't be reported if we don't have clear information. And I don't want to discredit a vaccine, but until there's more information, hopefully we're kind of focusing on approval for Pfizer and Moderna, until Oxford and AstraZeneca can be a little more forthcoming with their mistakes and with their data. Again, if you want to read further into this, I'll link Beth Moll's article in from Ars Technica, and you can take a look and you can read more. If you're interested also, if she's an accurate, reliable source, she does have a doctorate in microbiology, so yeah, she can report on this information. Where's Baby G? Baby G, Azra, is probably taking a nap right now. She's 9 months now. She's an expert crawler. She loves standing though. Standing and walking by holding on to things. Does say dada, does say mama. Sometimes high and by. You gotta kind of interpret it. You just woke up. It's 9:30. Don't you have school? I gotta put remind over here, and I gotta put the screen over there, so that way it looks like I'm looking at what I'm talking about in class instead of looking off into the corner. Just noticed that. So again, I'll link this in if you want to read it. Up to you. But I would suggest that if you're an Ursa Major kid, that you check out your CER grade for the Greenhouse Warming Lab. Ask questions if you want to revise or you're stuck. But all our notes, pictures, videos are in Classroom for your reference. Okay? And then try the IXL on human impact on groundwater. Connect to what we've done to where we're going. Asynchronous and synchronous. Finish everything aside. I'm waiting for history. It's fun. My second favorite subject. How'd science go? See if we got anything else on. Hate science? Why do you hate science? See if there's anything better on sciencenews.org. This one's my favorite. Teacher's rude? Are you rude to your teacher? We can both be honest, right? Sometimes you don't mean it, but sometimes you can come across a little rough, right? We gotta make sure that, you know, we're still, while we're being remote, how we type needs to be respectful. His work's insane. Well, I mean, they say, 8th graders say that I give them too much work, so hopefully I didn't prep you. You don't talk. Oh, well, that's not fair. Beetle Juice went dark, but it didn't go supernova. What happened? I heard one of the theories was Beetle Juice gave off a cloud of plasma. It ejected like it burped, and it blocked its own light. That's why it appeared to darken. We thought, astronomers last year thought, that Betelgeuse would go supernova, which would be awesome to see in our time. I doubt it's going to happen. Probably go supernova, blow up. Blow up in a couple of thousands of years. Alright. So, Betelgeuse, if you're interested, is in constellation Orion. And is the right armpit of Orion? Yeah. Orion's right armpit. Your left, his right. Maddie Law's in my class, and she drugs you with Red Bull. Chew gum, it's better. You won't have the crash of caffeine, but you still have the, hopefully, attention benefit of chewing, the act of chewing keeping you awake. What are you learning in science? See, I got an Ursa Major kid here. Great kid Ben saying, who hates science? Video games involve science, so science is awesome. And I agree with him, you know. I try and look for science in games here and there, right? I hear you, Ben. I like it. Yes. All right. Chew gum. Yes. Chew gum so you stay awake. Speaking of which, Ben, you know, Destiny 2 and Stasis coming out, cold doesn't exist, right? So how does that work? The darkness is actually lack of light. So that means it's the lack of heat. Oh, way. You can actually use it as a power. We did some earthquake things I failed to test. Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about earthquakes. You didn't really have the time. Because you do it a lot in 9th grade. The different faults. Did you do transverse, convergent, divergent boundaries? And we just had an earthquake, so you had a direct connection to it. Yeah, I like this right here. Coronavirus shutdowns don't need to be all or nothing. So, I've heard this. Targeted restrictions can minimize economic harm and save lives. So it's kind of a combination of closing things down and opening things up. But the caveat here is they're going to say it requires lots and lots of testing and contact tracing, both of which are expensive and slow because we don't have the resources for it. Where is he going to say it? Target hotspots, crowded indoor places, closures of bars, restaurants, cafes, working from home if possible, ban on celebrations. Alright, so some things should be shut down, some things shouldn't, but they're not going to talk about testing. contact tracing. Reduce crowding. Act early. Act early, but you can't do that without testing, just so you know. And contact tracing. So hopefully the Department of Health speeds up. Like, for our Ursa Major, we don't know if we're going back to school tomorrow or not yet. I didn't feel it where I was. I was at softball practice. You couldn't feel the ground? You're on the ground. You were outside. You didn't feel the earthquake, Azra? Apparently there was a follow-up about a week ago, too. Only a magnitude of 2, so 10 times weaker than the other one. Same location, closer to the surface. So like the energy's kind of like building upwards towards the surface as like an aftershock. That's kind of cool. Oh, coronavirus is its own little section. Wonderful. So I was just trying to find some other news that wasn't coronavirus. It wasn't as strong in Warwick or something. I don't play for Coventry. Ah. Yeah, this is obviously a fall or a travel league, right? Softball's in the spring. Wasn't strong in Warwick. Well, that's interesting though because of where it was. Warwick was technically closer, but Coventry might be closer to the southern coastline, which felt it a lot more, I think, because it was in southeastern Mass. Alright, so I don't have any other science questions. Talked a little bit about AstraZeneca's mess up with Oxford on their vaccine. Took a little bit at sciencenews.org, see if there's anything else. Talk about Beetle Juice. Go find Beetle Juice. It's out now. Out now. It's in the constellation Orion. Look for the 3 stars of the belt. And then you look up to the upper left corner above the belt, and you'll see a little red star. Not Mars. That's Betelgeuse. Mars isn't going to kind of like fade in and out. It's not going to twinkle like Betelgeuse does. Mars would be over to the southern sky when Orion's up. Orion kind of replaces Scorpius from summer to winter. Also look for Sirius, the dog star. That's over, if you look at the belt and you'll follow diagonal down to the left, right above the horizon, the eastern horizon, you'll see a bright star. 2 stars in one. That's why it looks so bright. None of the girls on my team really felt it. You guys are you're too focused on the game. I heard it, I didn't feel it. It sounded like a truck. Alright, Azra. It was nice having you here. Ben, nice seeing you in Remind. Anybody else? You taking a look? Just hanging out? It's good having you on. If you have any questions, send them through Remind, send them by email. I'll see you tomorrow, either virtually... Oh, my sister said she felt it. She hit home while I was gone. So I guess it was stronger in Coventry then. Huh. Or just less... It was a little quieter. So again, let me know if you have questions, reminder, email. I'll see you virtual or in person tomorrow. Wait for an email message from the principal later on in the afternoon about what Team A is doing, 8A is doing, what the rest of the school's doing. Stay safe, Azra. Bye. Everybody else, I'll see you later. Have a great Monday.